Hello, I'm Carina. Today with me, I have Renato Pasquini, Frost Sullivan Research Vice President and Global Program Leader of IoT, Edge, AI and Data Centers Program, and Luciano Fialho, Senior Vice President of Scala Data Centers. So I welcome our global audience and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to make a short introduction on the subject and then give space to the panelists. Over the past 2 years, GPUs have become substantially more powerful, with high-density racks that propel the training of large language models. In Brazil, data center providers started to build facilities that meet the demand for higher density systems with liquid cooling technologies. When implementing AI technology, Juliet, you can go to the next slide, please. Organizations must understand the purpose of and stage of their AI lifecycle. Training and inference are two critical states, and each serving a distinct purpose. The process of teaching AI model to perform a specific task using a large data set requires data center providers to focus on scalability and be able to handle higher rack densities through advanced integrated cooling systems, energy-efficient hardware, and AI-driven power management tools to reduce energy consumption in high-density hyperscale facilities. Once trained, the AI model can be used for inference to make predictions on new data. While model training can be located anywhere, the AI application must be closer to the user for inference. The 5G technology will also drive the market toward edge data centers currently. In this scenario, Brazil can be a strategic AI hub, especially for inferencing. So in the next slide, we have an end-user survey of Frost & Sullivan. Julieta, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. That says that 67% of respondents have already implemented AI in at least one business function or use case. Enterprise AI deployments are already moving beyond proof of concept stage in Brazil, according to the survey. Enterprises are appreciating the demand and the potential benefit of AI to support business outcomes. And access to AI is becoming more popular with ecosystem development here in Brazil, including open source models, tools, and platforms that support the adoption journey. So in the same end user survey, in the next slide, we have the main AI deployment model. So hybrid and public cloud already accounts to 61% of the main AI deployment model in Brazil. Currently, natural language processing is the main AI technology deployed in the country. As a consequence of this increase in enterprise AI workloads, so in the next slide, we have like the forecasts of that is based on a Frost & Sullivan study as well about data center colocation services. And Brazil has impressive pipeline of new data centers planned and under construction. By June of this year, the Ministry of Mines and Energy registered 52 requests for access to the basic network. It was 330% of increase year over year. The demand could reach 13.2 gigawatts by 2035 if all requests were obtained. So this forecast reflects that the compound annual growth rate from 2024 to 2029 is expected to be 19.6%. Frost & Sullivan recognized that sustained demand for resilient, scalable, and AI-ready infrastructure positions Brazil's data center colocation market for strong long-term growth. Today, the key question is, Juliette, you can go to the next slide. Which growth strategies and technology decisions will position your organizations to thrive in this new era? So let's explore these points in today's webinar. Last year, Scala announced the Scala AI City. Luciano, can you talk a little about your company and this project and how it positions Brazil as an infrastructure hub for AI?
Sure. Thank you, Carina, for the introduction. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone joining us today. So my name is Luciano Fialho. I'm the Senior Vice President at the Scala Data Center, where I'm responsible for real estate, power, investment, licensing, legal, GRC, institutional relations across Latin America. My focus has been on expanding Scala infrastructure footprint, securing renewable energy for our campus, and developing strategic projects like our AI city in southern Brazil. It's a real pleasure to be here with Frost and Sullivan. I want to start by thanking them for the opportunity to discuss such an exciting and strategic topic. At Scala, we have a privilege of being at the center of this transformation, developing digital infrastructure that support the cloud, AI, and the new data-driven economy. I'm truly looking forward to sharing our perspective on how Brazil is positioning itself, not only as a hyperscale destination, but also as a regional hub for innovation, sustainability, and AI. So I'm looking forward to discuss with Renato and Carina. So a little bit about Scala. Scala has the largest portfolio in land and power bank in Latin America comparing to the competitors. So we are working for countries in 10 different markets. 100% of our energy is renewable. We have almost 10 million square meters of land to be developed, and more than 6 gigawatts of energy. So now our capacity is booked. It's close to 200 megawatts. We have a short pipeline that's going to be make it double. And we have 13 operational data centers and 5 that's being constructed and it's going to be ready for the next 1 year. So next slide, please. So to give you an overview about how Scala expanding, we're working 4 markets. Is Brazil #1 with data centers in São Paulo, Tamboré, Jundiaí, and Campinas. Also in Rio de Janeiro, Porto Alegre, and Fortaleza. We have 2 sites in Mexico, in Querétaro, another one in Temples Park. We have 3 sites. One is already operating in Mexico. We have 3 sites in Chile. One in Curalma is been operating since 2023. And we have another 2 that's going to start operations next year, the beginning of next year, in Lampa and Huechuraba. And also we are developing 3 sites in Colombia. This is our footprint in Latin America. So, and it's important to say that Scala started its operation in 2020. So we are a 5-year company with already almost 18 sites in operation. So a little bit about our project in Eldorado do Sul, which is Scala AI City. I would like to give you an overview why we have built why we have started this project, what we are planning to do there. So in early 2024, we start to see the demand for AI processing in the United States grow exponentially. At the same time, it became clear that U.S. power grid would face increasing constraint to sustain such accelerated data processing expansion. So we see in North Virginia that to connect to the grid would take like between 5 to 7 years. So there is a mismatch between what's going to happen, between the demand and data center is being offered to develop the AI. So the first thing that we start doing was we began to look for alternative locations in Brazil, particularly power substation in southern and southeastern Brazil, with grid capacity available. And then we identified Guaíba 3 substation located in Eldorado do Sul, only 19 miles from Porto Alegre, the capital of Rio Grande do Sul. This is the biggest substation. I mean, it's with energy power available in Brazil. So what we did, we Scala acquired 10 million square meter site right next to the substation, which is about 2,400 acres, just next to the substation. And then we work with the local authorities to convert the area into a urban zone dedicated to data center developments. So in May 2025, we obtained the authorization from the Minister of Energy to connect and draw up to 5 gigawatts from the national grid, starting with 1.8 gigawatts. With this amount of renewable energy available and connect to a highly reliable and resilient power grid like the Rio Grande do Sul, Scala plans to make the entire area available for AI processing workloads. So when you see, this is just a render because we're still developing the project, but you can see that there is district only for data centers, only for processing, and there is also a supporting infrastructure such as accommodation buildings, offices for the hyperscalers, restaurants, storage facilities, hotels, convention centers. So that's the reason that we call this project as an AI city. So what's the goal of this big site? Is to serve the local market, of course, South American region, because we are pretty close to Chile, Uruguay, Argentina, and also United States and Europe to process AI. And that we're benefiting. Why we use this? Because we can benefit for the amount of energy available in that specific place, and it's green energy. So that's our first step to help Brazil to become a hub for AI processing. That's our project in the south of the country.
Thanks for the presentation, Luciano. It's really an impressive project. Luciano, since Scala is leading the market in sustainable data center solutions, I'd like to get the conversation started with you, please. What's your perspective about scaling AI workloads with high-density colocation services? And can you please comment a little about advanced cooling system and skilled hyperscale expertise and what it takes to gain this level of scale?
So what we believe is scaling AI workloads requires a complete different mindset compared to traditional data processing. We are talking about power densities that are 5 to 10 times higher than conventional deployments. That's number one, often exceeding 80 or even 100 kilowatts per rack. This is a big difference, number one. And to make this feasible, high-density colocation providers need to combine what we believe 3 essential elements. Number one, advanced cooling technology. Number two, robust electrical design. And number three, deep operational expertise. So at Scala, what we have doing? We have been preparing for this transition for the last 3 years. Our new generation data centers integrates direct-to-chip liquid cooling and rear door heat exchangers, supported by distribution systems designed for extreme density and redundancy. This allows us to host GPUs clusters at hyperscale while maintaining efficiency and reliability. But what we believe is that technology is not enough. So hyperscale experience is critical. It's different from the enterprise. Building and operating data center at this level of scale demands multidisciplinary teams that understand not only engineering and operation, but also power procurement, regulation, and sustainability. So it's not only about technology. In the end, to achieve a true AI scale infrastructure is about aligning advanced technology, skilled talent, long-term energy talent strategy in a framework that guarantees to the client reliability, efficiency, and compliance. So it's not just about technology. We have to offer technology, but we need to combine those elements with reliability, which is very important, efficiency, again, and compliance.
That's why Scala have a center of excellence internally, right? Like to include all these professionals, engineers, architects, data center specialists to do that, right, Luciano?
Exactly. That's the reason. So we instead of using third providers, we concentrate our efforts in internalize the team, and we have more than 400 engineers, architects, designers, and that can work together with the client, especially to find how to build the technology they are requiring, and also the level of efficiency they are requiring.
Thank you for your insights. And Renato, can you complement with your insights about how Brazil's data hubs are evolving to support AI and high performance computing with sustainability, as Luciano comments as well?
Sure, yeah. Good morning, Luciano and Carina. Yeah, it's really impressive, the project. 5 gigawatts is one of the largest projects globally. If you take the largest one, which is OpenAI's Stargate, it's a 7 gigawatts project from the largest AI company globally. So you can see let's say, the dimension of the project that's being done by Scala in Brazil. It's really impressive, let's say, the plans of the company here. In terms of the AI data hubs, yeah, I was in Mexico last week for the DCD event with many data center players. And I think the market is having like a new era in terms of investments. The companies have capital or are being able to get the funds to do the expansion. And the opportunities in Latin America are really impressive because the region has available energy, and especially clean energy, right? So in addition to hydro, there are many important projects in terms of wind and solar. The data center companies are also investing in energy generation, and that attracts a lot the attention of hyperscalers or large enterprises that have ESG goals, for instance, or they need to reduce their carbon footprint. So they will rely on colocation players to implement an infrastructure that is efficient in terms of energy or water usage as well. The sector has sort of a stigma that it spends a lot of water, but it's not necessarily true with the new technologies and design of the operations. So I think the sector has to educate a little bit the government, the institutions, and enterprises about it, because really, let's say, the way the data centers are being designed, it's much more efficient and in all elements in terms of resources, right? One other aspect I would like to comment on is that the sector is changing a lot as well based on what we are analyzing. For instance, in the US, the sector is clearly decentralizing. Previously, it used to be very concentrated on large urban centers. If you take Brazil, for instance, it would be São Paulo and Rio. And now with AI, the determinants for investments are different, or let's say, the aspects that are important are different, especially the energy availability, space, let's say, lower costs for land and to build, and tax incentives. So it's important that Brazil has taken the lead to also implement a public policy reducing investments for investment, let's say reduce import taxes for equipment and for data center hardware. And this will certainly help as well Brazil position itself as one of the leaders in this AI area, because it has disadvantages in other areas, like in terms of energy costs, not necessarily qualified labor. You need to train people to be able to drive this expansion of facilities, right? And we used to have a very large tax burden in Brazil. So with this public policy, that should help as well, let's say, induce more investments, attract more companies and even hyperscalers to position computing, storage, other capabilities in Brazil. So I think that's another important element in addition to the energy availability, which is critical, and that Brazil has, right? And many companies are facing scarcity of energy availability. Luciano was commenting about North Virginia. That's, let's say, the largest data center hub in the US, and it's facing let's say, a significant problem with that. And they are thinking about nuclear energy or any other sources of energy, even carbon-intense energy generation, which is not the way to go, right? As we think about the future of society and our planet, I think Brazil has more to offer on that side as well.
Yeah, for sure. Brazil stands out globally for its predominantly clean energy sources and renewable energy metrics, as well its abundant water resources for cooling systems. As Renato mentioned,
just to add what Renato said about the water usage,
yeah,
there's a
asked
misunderstanding about this in the market, because 80% of the data centers in Brazil, they are very efficient. They use the closed loop process. So you just use water for at once in the site, in the building, so you don't waste any water. So, and we expect in the next 5 years that 90% of the market is going to use only the closed loop. Only the old data center is going to use they're going to use the old system that use a lot of water, but it's really efficient. And the good thing about Brazil, that Brazil is behind in some sense comparing to the US market, but then we can absorb those technology faster than they're using in the past. So in terms of sustainability, we start the process much more sustainable than comparing to other markets, because we are behind. So we can adapt the technologies comparing to other markets.
Yeah, for sure. It's closed circuit that prevents water evaporation to cool the sites. It's an advanced tool here in the market. So going to this energy topic, the energy demand has really become the biggest challenge for the data centers industry, especially with the rise of AI here in Brazil. Renato, I would like to go next and give your perspective of upcoming infrastructure and managed services powered by these renewable and clean energy sources, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's say for AI and HPC, it requires sort of new infrastructure. So the backbones have to be improved, connecting those facilities. Usually the equipment now requires 400 gigabits per second of connectivity, and that should evolve to 1.4 terabytes per second. So it's much different from what we saw in the past in terms of even requirements from hyperscalers for computing, right? So I think the telcos are evolving fast on this as well. Even data center companies that have telecommunications operations, they are investing a lot to interconnect the data centers, make sure it has a reliable connectivity or redundant connectivity from different providers. And also Brazil has a lot of connectivity to submarine cables, and some companies are planning to launch data centers next to those landing sites. So Fortaleza is a key example, and I think Luciano had one data center planned in Fortaleza as well. But let's say, for placement of those new facilities, it should have into account that the connectivity support or structure backbone needs to be different from what we have today to serve those facilities, because especially when you place those facilities on remote areas or rural sites or in the northeast of Brazil, you would face a latency problem. Let's say if you don't have a reliable connectivity enhanced and purpose-built for AI and HPC, but the companies are investing to get to that point where you could serve even countries abroad from those facilities with reliable connectivity, reliable energy, qualified people that will need to move to those locations, right? And even create the ecosystems around the companies. But I think a project from that dimension, like 1 gigawatt, 5 gigawatts, should attract naturally the ecosystem around it, and even investment from the telcos to get the connectivity there. So we'll see from the coming years that evolving. And it's really good that Brazil, as I mentioned, has taken the lead to reduce taxes over the imports, because otherwise it would be limited to free trade zones like we have in Colombia or Chile or now in Argentina as well. So I think it's important to have a national policy to decentralize the investment and take advantage of energy availability. I think Luciano was mentioning that Rio Grande do Sul has a very reliable grid with energy availability to build such a huge infrastructure. I think Brazil should incentivize that instead of restricting to, let's say, special zones in certain locations.
I agree 100%,
And
Renato.
Yeah, and in addition to availability of energy and space, Eldorado do Sul was strategically chosen by its proximity to the Malbec submarine cable route, right, Luciano, that you mentioned in your presentation.
Yes. It's strategic for many reasons there, not just because of the energy. Number one is that the Rio Grande State has a diversified metrics and energetic metrics. They have wind, they have solar, they have hydropower, they have gas coming from Argentina, and they have biomass. So they have different sources of power. Number one, which is good. Number two, that the system, the grid system there is very well established, is very strong. The lines are strong. So this is another point. So the weather there helps a lot in terms of cooling, because the average climate there is temperature is between 15 and 17 degrees Celsius the whole year. Of course, you have some part of the years, like especially in the summer, that's a little is higher, but anyway, the average is between 50 and 70, who helps a lot, and the cooling system becomes much more efficient. The PUE, that's the power usage effectiveness there, can reach lower than 1.2, which it's pretty similar to the North Hemisphere. So this is another point. And also there is the Malbec cable coming from the Atlantic, but there is another thing that they are there is a cable coming from a submarine cable going to Chile in the San Antonio area that's planned to go over Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. That's going to connect the Pacific data to Brazil as well. So it's a location that's going to receive data from the Atlantic cables and from the Pacific cables as well. So it's a strategic location.
And Luciano, what's your perspective in terms of bundling AI infrastructure that you already have with managed service? What is your vision regarding that? How are cloud providers expected to adopt it?
So bundling AI infrastructure with managed services, how we see that? We see AI infrastructure not just as a real estate and energy play, but as an integrated technology and service platform. Hyperscalers and cloud providers are moving toward models where infrastructure, cooling, workload management, and sustainability reporting are delivered together as a managed service. That's the way we see that. This model, the data center operator provides not only physical environment, which is power, cooling, and connectivity, but also management layers that support GPU clusters, workload scheduling, and energy optimization. So it's much more than just physical. This is exactly where Scala is positioning itself, offering ready to deploy high-density environments combined with managed service that will allow cloud providers and enterprise to scale AI workloads quickly and reliable without having to build their own physical infrastructure. This goes to another topic. It's how cloud providers are expected to adopt it. So that share with you and the audience what we believe. So we believe cloud providers will increasingly co-locate AI clusters within large renewable powered campuses. So we have more than one cloud provider use big campus like our campus in like the Stargate project, like the also campus in Rio Grande do Sul, and because they can take advantage of shared cooling and power ecosystem. It's not easy to get this amount of power in different locations. You're going to get this amount of power. You need a huge, big infrastructure and also connectivity. So connectivity and power are going to the same location. And then the cloud providers, the hyperscalers, the guys who are going to run the AI data, they're going to share these locations. Not, of course, share the same building, but they're going to share those big locations. That's what I believe. So that's a way that it can expand faster, reduce capital intensity, and maintain control over the AI stack. So that's what I believe, and that's the model that Scala believe as well, of course, because so we are driving our investments in large data center campuses not only in Rio Grande do Sul but also in São Paulo. Instead of having one building, we have campus that we can build. We can bring a huge amount of power and connectivity and share those campus with different cloud providers and AI, of course, the hyperscalers. That's what we believe.
Yeah, that's why hyperscalers typically have a mixed strategy of self-build and whole data center colocations, because they cannot do all these things by their own, right?
Yes, I think especially in Latin America, the demand in the US is so big. If you compare it to Latin America, that if I were hyperscale, I would concentrate my efforts at first there in United States and probably use third parties here in Latin America, because I mean it's you cannot compare. The demand there goes almost to 40 gigawatts, and so in Brazil and in Latin America the installed capacity is only 1 giga right now. So I think I would delegate at the beginning, at least, for the third parts like data center providers.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, United States, I would like to move past this energy driver to the latency driver for data center colocation services here in Brazil. So AI workloads and digital services in Latin America and other regions often rely on service hosted in the United States or Europe, leading to latency, bandwidth costs, and compliance hurdles. So cloud providers need innovative ways to minimize latency and compliance risks under regional data protection frameworks, right? This benefits data centers providers here in the country and can attract AI and high-performance computing investments in the country. Have you identified this growth opportunity in the data centers industry here? What would be the top priorities for change and action in Brazil? Renato, would you like to start this time?
Yeah, I was going to ask if it was for me, this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a clear opportunity, not only for Brazil, but for any country that is not the US, as Luciano mentioned, right? even Singapore, that it's a small country, will not attract, let's say, huge hyperscale investment in AI, but certainly they can attract, let's say, private AI from enterprises, like smaller models that work for those companies, or even attract investments in regulated sectors like healthcare, finance, government, because they need to keep the data within the country. And also it's very sensitive data. So they will need to train their models or apply inference due to the latency issue locally. So that's certainly an area which will grow a lot in the different countries. And for Brazil, that's also a very important trend. Brazil also has the data protection law, similar to GDPR, but locally, that customers need to comply with. And having locally the infrastructure helps with that. Also to avoid cybersecurity issues. The data center providers have solutions that are private and protect that. So I think it's important, and probably the companies will continue relying on data center providers to support their journey on AI implementation. And finally, just a comment that I don't think Brazil will be limited to that. On the opposite side, I think it can attract more comprehensive investments by enterprises as well. I think last week, Alea Data Centers announced a 30 megawatt project with Petrobras, for instance. So it's just one example, right? Some companies are not yet publishing the case studies that they have, but it's like a major project of private AI with a Brazilian company in oil and gas. Many more will emerge, I would say, in the next years. And let's say with those tax incentives, availability of infrastructure, I think it's possible that Brazil may attract also investments from hyperscalers to build local infrastructure to support even larger models. Maybe not the central model like Stargate, right? But let's say incremental investment from players. Even OpenAI has invested in the Middle East and in Nordics. So they are expanding internationally. So it's possible that certain workloads or certain models can run in Brazil, for instance. May not be the Sora that was launched, like a major GPU intensive model, but it's possible that Brazil may host certain models for companies, and that should drive investments as well. So just that point is, I think Brazil is large enough not to be limited just to the regulatory or compliance side, but may also attract much larger models here.
And Luciano, do you agree establishing regional edge zones for low latency AI applications is a growth opportunity here in Brazil?
We agree. I agree 100% with Renato. That what we clearly see, this is as one of the most important growth opportunities for Brazil and the wider Latin American region. So it's right now. And what's the real opportunity? As you mentioned, as Renato mentioned, many AI and digital services used in Latin America still depend on services located in the US, and Europe as well, but much more US. This creates latency, higher bandwidth costs, and sometimes compliance issues with local data protection laws. So hosting this infrastructure locally here in Brazil, closer to users and data source, can dramatically reduce those challenges. Now, Brazil is in particular has the right combination of factors to attract this wave of AI and high performance computing investments. So a reliable renewable energy supply, strong connectivity, and large and growing digital market. So like I would like to complete some points that Renato said about top priorities for change and action in Brazil. So number one is power at scale. We need to secure large volumes of clean, renewable power and simplify the process to connect the new data centers to the grid. This is key. This is number one, no? Because we know that the agency that operates the system, the grid, the power system in Brazil, says that Brazil in the generation has more than 18 gigawatts of surplus that's not being used right now. So we don't have a problem in the generation. That's a problem in other countries, but it's not a problem in Brazil. And in this generation is renewable generation, power generation. This is number one. But the transmission is the key point here. And it's not a bottleneck right now, but it can be in the close future, because the time that you take, because you have to follow the regulatory points to build a transmission line, is between 5 to 7 years. But the demand for the client is between 12 to 18 months. So there is a mismatch between what is being offered by the power infrastructure to connect the grid to the sites and the demand of the clients. This is number one. So power at scale is number one. You want to comment, Renato?
No, I was just going to comment about, you were saying about the latency issue with connected to the US, right?
Yeah.
I think there's an important trend as well in terms of caching, right? Similar to what we've seen in video, let's say YouTube or Netflix, caching content in Brazil to distribute closer to the user, reducing latency for the most common used content. We can see that happening to AI as well. So the most commonly used models or workloads can be placed closer to the user. So this should drive, like, let's say, an edge infrastructure or data centers throughout the country, hosting part of that infrastructure to support better the user or improve user experience. I think that should drive investments as well.
Exactly. So going back to the top priorities, number one, it's power at scale. Number two is a clear regulatory guidance. So the Brazil's Data Protection Authority, the ANPD, can play a key role in defining how AI data center can process it locally. So if it would help a lot if they could distinguish between what is infrastructure providers and AI operators. Would be very helpful. Number three, so it's number one, power. Number two, regulatory guidance. Number three, connectivity. We must continue improving interconnection between major cities, cloud regions, subsea cables, so the data can flow efficiently from Brazil, within Brazil, and from Brazil across borders. Then we can simplify important tax rules, which being happening right now with the Red Data bill. So and also we need faster custom and tax procedures for advanced technologies like GPUs and cooling system. And number five, I would say that we can thinking about would change a lot if we change about sovereign cloud zones, like creating a certified Brazil-only zones for processing Brazil data, not the one for South America only data regions or for United States data regions. So they can clear guarantee the data residency with attract customers from financial, healthcare, public sectors. And finally, the skilled workforce. So we must train more professional in high-density cooling, power engineering, a data center operations to sustain the new scale of infrastructure. So then it comes your question: are regional edge zones a growth opportunity? Absolutely. So regional edge zones can host AI applications that require very low latency, as Renato explained. So like language models, recommendation system, autonomous systems. So we need the edge by processing data closer to the end user. These edge locations don't need to be as large as hyperscale campus, so they operate in key metropolitan areas like São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Porto Alegre, Belo Horizonte, Recife, Fortaleza. So together they can serve local users while connecting major AI hubs for large scale training. So what we looking forward, we see the future as a combination of two layers of infrastructure. One is the large AI regions, gigawatt scale campus powered by renewable energy and advanced cooling system, like Rio Grande do Sul. and smaller regional edge zones built near major cities to deliver real-time AI performance. That's inference. So that's the way that we see that.
Yeah, Luciano, and just complementing the energy factor, some players now already operate with 100% renewable energy, and this is made possible by long-term power purchase agreements, right? So the providers that have an extensive portfolio as Scala of assured energy will stand out in the long term in this industry, right? That's why PPIs are so important in this market. But I'd like to go further on the latency aspect. So strategically located data centers really help latency for AI applications, a crucial factor in performance that directly impacts efficiency and user experience. As Renato mentioned, the verticals of healthcare, finance, and government, local data centers also guarantee compliance with the Brazilian data protection law and with sectorial data localization rules. So my question is, Renato, if you'd like to start, how do you see these localization strategies optimizing efficiency and user experience across these sectors? If you'd like to complement a little bit your previous answer.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's really important and will become increasingly important as AI inferencing evolves, because it requires real-time responses from trained models. So you need the infrastructure to respond perfectly to guarantee a good experience for the user, right? Or for the enterprise, especially when you're running mission critical applications, or if you take the scenario of an autonomous car that needs to make a decision when it's crossing a street, and it can result in an accident if it doesn't make the right inference at that point in time. So I think things will need to evolve, and they will evolve quickly. In terms of connectivity, we have the solutions already. So let's say 5G with network slicing provides the necessary infrastructure layer for mobility solutions. But then you gotta have the edge infrastructure as well with those AI capabilities. That will require things working together, or even the car communicating with the infrastructure. So that's something being very well developed in China, for instance, right now, but not widespread throughout the world. The US is now discussing how to implement such infrastructure. So they are rolling out that communication for cars on every single road until 2030. As in any other sector, that starts with the developed countries, but that goes top down to other countries as well. But I think the elements are there, and clearly AI inferencing is evolving quickly. Right now, the AI sector is very concentrated on training, but that should change in the coming years. And as it changes, latency becomes a critical factor. And having the necessary infrastructure and connectivity supports that. I think the colocation players, with the structure they have right now, they already can provide ultra low latency to most customers and enterprises in Brazil, for instance. But as demands evolves and in other tier 2, tier 3 cities, that can become something that's driving investments in the future, or data centers throughout the country as well.
And just adding to that, how important is this subject right now? Because the question is not just about latency, it's about digital infrastructure. Now, this is a key infrastructure for any country. So we are coming to the point that only private investment is not enough. You need the public policies together.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So because otherwise we're never going to have autonomous car, IoT operating in our countries, because if you need just more than developing the technology, we need the infrastructure for doing that. So, and that infrastructure, when you talk about the infrastructure, you talk about the connectivity, the fiber, you're talking about data centers, you're talking about the transmission lines. So it's much more than just latency in the opportunity. It's about how are you going to grow your country, how are you going to make the investments, how are you going to bring technology to the country, how the government in Brazil is going to do the digital transition. It's not going to happen if there is no digital infrastructure. So when you see the PPA project, that's the big plan of Brazil to do the digital transition. I always say that we're never going to do anything like that if there is no infrastructure for doing that. The planes are not going to land or take off if there is no airport for doing that. That's the metaphor that we can use it. So it's when you talk about latency, it's critical not only for streaming, or not only for media, nothing for it. It's much more than that. It's about all the services that are going to be being offered by the financial system, all the services that are going to be offered by the health system. I mean, it's otherwise we're going to be behind for developed comparing to the developed countries.
That's true, yeah. I think it became the most important single thing for governments like US and China and others, because they realize that that's something, the digital infrastructure is something that will drive future productivity in any given sector. So even if Brazil wants to sustain its leadership in agriculture, for instance, the next frontier of productivity will come from artificial intelligence for sure. So we gotta have the infrastructure in place to, let's say, to make Brazil a great economy in the future. I think that's probably one of the most important things to be investing on right now, and the government has an important
it's a geopolitical
role.
it's a geopolitical issue. No, I think we are working together with the government to educate. Of course, we are working with different sectors to educate, with the energy sector, with the financial sector. We need to educate different groups. But I mean, educate the government that it's much more than just private investment. It's just more than bringing AI to Brazil. It's not just that. It's more than that. It's a public policy that need to be looked at very closely to understand that Brazil is nothing in Brazil is going to happen. And there are plenty if we don't bring the digital infrastructure. We don't invest in digital infrastructure. So
I think the countries that don't invest on that will look kind of prehistoric at some point, right?
Exactly.
Let's say countries like Iran, North Korea, that have significant restrictions for acquiring hardware or infrastructure will be in the past, right? The companies operating or they'll not be at the same level. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the challenge, Renato, is like when you talk to the government, it's segregated discussions about what is fake news, what is media. I mean, they concentrate too much time working and discussing those points, which they're important, of course. But I mean, it's much more important than that. It's discussing about the infrastructure. So it's not just the media that comes here. It's the bunch of solutions that are going to come with the digital infrastructure.
Yeah, digital infrastructure is like the basic foundation for all the new digital services, right?
Exactly.
So Brazil, thank you for insights, Luciano. Thank you for insights, Renato. To conclude this briefing today, I say that Brazil can evolve from a hyperscale hub to an AI powerhouse if growth challenges are addressed proactively and public policies can support this digital transformation.